Hello? Okay, I actually don't know if I'm on a good Wi-Fi. So we'll see how it goes. Just keep me updated. I'm actually trying to. Oh, there we go. I'm trying to connect to my live video right now because that's how I read my chat. So, thank you guys for being here. I just ended an Instagram live, and I think I'm gonna start doing more Instagram lives before I come on YouTube. And it's interesting because literally I already feel a different energy. As I was talking about on Instagram, a lot of times when I go live, I feel like like there's a million thoughts coming at me all at once, and I feel like I kind of spiral into them. But it's weird because there I felt so much more like anxious and like da 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 da. And here I actually feel a lot more peaceful, which is weird. I wasn't expecting that contrast. I thought it was more just about my energy. I think it actually might be about the platform. And also, on my other account, it was also like, it's been my personal Instagram account for years. So a lot of the people that came on aren't people who are, here for the kind of content I make now. They might just be like, like, what is she talking about? And I think there might be more energies of like, people I know, but I wasn't even self aware of that, if that makes sense. Anyways, yo, hi Ashley. Hello, Christian. Hello, love. Good evening, Sage Mars. Good evening. Another thing before we get into the topic of today's video that I want to bring up is the fact that I have this limiting belief, this silly ass limiting belief that I have to go live during the day when I'm on YouTube. Like the sun has to be out because I don't have a ring light. I mean, this lighting's not ideal. Let's be real. Like this background is pretty I mean, it is what it is, right? But my point is, I've had this limiting belief that I have to be like doing my lives during the day for the better lighting, or I don't know. So when I wake up at 2, which I do often, I wake up really late, okay? My sleep schedule is really abnormal. Some days I'll wake up at 10, some days I wake up at 8 on occasion, which is always amazing when I have a full day. But a lot of times, like, I go to bed late and I wake up late. I mean, last night I went to bed at 3 a.m. and today I woke up at 2. Because my body literally, I woke up multiple times, but my body's like, nah, let's keep sleeping. Sleep is what you need. And I felt amazing, but then these thoughts come into my head of like, oh, this is bad. You don't have a lot of the day. This is the time you were leaving school in high school, and now you're waking up at this time. Like, oh, this is awful. When in reality, it doesn't actually matter as long as I'm getting enough sleep. But the problem is because for so long at nighttime, I believe nighttime is my time to do homework. And once I'm done with homework, it's time to relax. And I'm not currently in school. I've been thinking, oh, my day's gone, so now I can't do anything, which isn't true. I mean, I've been doing my art a lot at night. Like last night, I just wasn't feeling tired when it was like 1 a.m. So I decided to paint for multiple hours and just listen to music. And that was really great. I feel like naturally my mind is wanting to move to the topic of today's video, which is all about avoidance, as you can tell from the title. So just give me a second. I want to pull up my notes. So I think what's interesting is one of the main ways that I tend to avoid my problems, my negative emotions, all that stuff is I tend to watch videos. So first thing in the morning when I wake up, my first reaction is usually to turn on a YouTube video, sometimes to scroll through Instagram. And before I go to bed, even if I'm really tired, I have the instinct to want to watch something. And I feel this urge so often. And, for the past year, especially as COVID's been a thing, I have been using YouTube, TV. I mean, I don't really watch a lot of TV unless I'm with friends, but I've been using a lot of YouTube, video games, and social media to fill my time. And for the most part, like it's just like this draw, and like my mind goes to this so much. Oh, what do? Let's go on my phone. And recently, watching these videos has not been feeling as good as it used to. Like, I feel almost anxious. Like, I've been watching a lot of spiritual creators who I love and could watch for hours. And even when I'm doing art, I don't feel the desire to listen to them as much as I do to listen to, like, some really chill lo-fi music in the background that may not even have any lyrics. Like, that's more of what I want to go towards, which is the reason I'm making this video, because now that my avoidance or distraction strategies that I've used to cope with like boredom or negative emotions for a really long time aren't really doing the trick anymore, and if anything are just kind of agitating the problem. So it's been a really big focus for me, and has also given me a really big opportunity to try different coping strategies and try different ways of dealing with these emotions. So we're actually sending chill vibes for real. Yes, I am very much enjoying the vibes here on YouTube. Are you more active at night? I definitely tend to be more of a night owl, but I also love getting up early when I do, because I love feeling like I have a full day. It's really nice. So, I mean, I go back and forth. It really depends. My sleep is the exact same way, coming to the realization that daylight equals productivity time. Or does not equal productivity time was so liberating. Yeah, exactly. Which is why I decided I'm going to do a video later today, because usually I'm like, oh God, the sun's down, can't be productive. No, fuck that. The light bulb was invented. I can work whenever the fuck I want. Okay? Thank you. That's amazing. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? The invention of the light bulb changed everything. Wow. Here we are. Okay. So, avoidance as a problem, you could say, or avoidance as a coping strategy that can be not great in your life, can manifest in multiple different ways. So here are the ways that I wrote down that avoidance can look like. Avoidance looks like procrastination. Pretty self-explanatory. It looks like ghosting people. If you're talking to someone and you no longer want to talk to them, and so you just decide to completely stop talking to them and stop responding to them or opening their messages, you're completely avoiding the confrontation of ending that relationship, and you know that you may be hurting that person, but you're preventing yourself from thinking about it. It doesn't exist out of sight, out of mind, and you're not even fully aware of how your avoidant coping strategy could actually have more negative effects on both that other person, but also yourself. It can also look like spiritual bypassing, something that can actually be kind of hard to spot. Really, really hard to spot, because it likes to trick you into thinking you're doing the spiritual in alignment thing when really you're using spiritual ideologies to avoid your responsibility or avoid your problems or avoid your shadow, all sorts of things. Also distraction, or distracting yourself with things like TV, video games, substances, food, partying, all things that can be used well and in balance, and none of these things are bad. However, a lot of these things can become an addiction, and the reason they're so addictive is because you're avoiding dealing with the emotion that you're trying to escape from. And I think the thing about avoidance is it's so normal in our society today, and almost everyone like uses avoidance as a coping strategy. And yet we don't really talk about how big of an issue it is. And I feel like one thing I find so interesting is people will always point out how you're being avoidant, or how you may be doing things that are, like you may be avoiding your problems or responsibilities or confrontation or being direct with people. And yet these people who are pointing that out in you are doing it themselves, but may not see it because they're doing it in a different way than you. So maybe your parents are pointing out that you're always procrastinating, but they're always avoiding talking directly about their relationship. that's maybe not the best example, but my point is, I think avoidance is something that almost everyone does because it's such an easy way to deal with things, because something sucks, we feel really anxious about it, and because we've never been taught that that anxiety actually can have a message for us that could really help us, we learn, let's just avoid dealing with this thing so I don't have to feel the anxiety or I don't have to feel the stress. And then you just put it on the back burner, but then it always comes back. And because you know that avoiding it works in the moment, you're going to keep doing it again. Anything that is instant gratification is avoidance. You're using a more positive thing to avoid or cover up something that you perceive as more negative or challenging or difficult or uncomfortable. Instant gratification, anything that has to do with that, is a form of avoidance. That's something that I've come to realize personally. I'm developing binge eating as an escape for all my avoidance issues. But you see, binge eating is still avoidance because you're using eating to avoid, in a sense. You're using eating to cover up maybe the other emotions that are there. And I mean, like, all of us to an extent have done all these things. Some of us may experience some more than others. I mean, even like not eating food can be an avoidance if food can be a trigger for you. I mean, like, it's weird because avoidance can manifest in a multitude of ways. Like, I don't even think I could come up with all of them. This is so true for me. I was avoiding some big feelings for like a whole week. I ended up having a huge cry about it last night. Yeah, and that's awesome because, you know, in some instances, just in the way our society is formatted, there may be moments where we kind of have to avoid or put things to the side. But the thing is, we can't put it to the side and act like we're coming back to it, but never come back to it. Because there's a difference between being like, okay, I'm not in a place where it's safe for me to feel or express this emotion, and then you come to it at another point. And I don't think we should be living like that, but I do think like it's not bad if we choose to come back to it at a different point in time, if that makes sense. Yes. So the feelings that come up as a result of avoidance, the ones that I wrote down, are first and foremost anxiety/stress. To me, what I realized about anxiety, because I'm a person that experiences a lot of anxiety really intensely and have for a very long time, is anxiety is always there to cover up another feeling. I almost see anxiety as like you're feeling the feeling, or the way other people would react if you felt that other feeling, or what would happen if you felt that other feeling, because you may perceive this other feeling as bad. So you get more caught up in feeling the fear of feeling that other feeling. So you're feeling something else. Anxiety is never the root emotion. Never. And you can disagree with that from my perspective, from what I have now found, because I used to just think, oh yeah, I'm just anxious. Oops. And there's something comforting about saying, I'm just anxious, I'm just stressed, I'm just overwhelmed. You don't have to take any accountability with that. Yep, I'm stressed. And you don't have to blame anyone for it. Like, as a person who's been a people pleaser, like, it's so great to just say, yeah, I'm just anxious, I'm just stressed. All of the like negative things that you do, all the avoidance behaviors, all of the not being direct with people, you can just blame it on being stressed. It's awesome. However, obviously, if you continue to just blame things on your anxiety or your stress or your overwhelm, you're always going to be in that cycle. And whenever these other emotions come up, if you don't feel like you're allowed to feel those things, you're going to come right back to stress unconsciously. That's the way that I perceive it. Another one is anger, but especially frustration. It's interesting because I've also realized that anger and frustration is also a cover emotion. I think it can be a bit deeper than anxiety is, because anxiety is fear, but fear that's like, it's really fear of feeling. But then you're causing yourself to feel something else. But it's also like fear of the future. And you're worrying about the future because you're afraid of what things would happen to you and how that would make you feel. So, I mean, again, this is just a perspective. Anything I say, you can take it or leave it. To me, frustration is a lot about feeling like it's unfair that you are feeling what you're feeling. Frustration is very much about someone does something that triggers an emotion within you, and you get mad or angry or pissed off that for some reason life is bringing you this inconvenience, or that life is causing you to feel this way, and therefore you're getting so like, you just want to make things right so that the emotion stops. Which is interesting, because I don't think I've ever thought that before, but it just came so naturally right now. The idea that anxiety is a fear of feeling what you're feeling, and frustration is feeling like it's an injustice that you're feeling the way that you are. Like, you don't deserve to go through this. Like, I'll give you an example. The other day I did this meditation, and I actually want to talk about this in another video, so I'm going to do it like very, I'm going to go over this very briefly, which is, I was doing this meditation and I was having like an emotional block. So I was just sitting with that block, not trying to change it. And then at a certain point, like, this voice kind of came over me, and I was just so angry. Like, I swear when I meditate, what I often see is myself yelling and screaming and like pounding my fists, but I don't feel the anger. Like, I don't feel anything. It just feels like I'm watching it happen. But then I started to like feel this, like it started to like come over me. And what the main thing I kept saying was like, it's not fair. What did I do to deserve this? Why do I have to be the one that feels this way? Like, there was this image of a past life that came through, which is interesting because that like, this has been one of a few times where I've like seen a past life, but I actually want to bring that up in my next video, so I don't want to spoil it. But it was really cool. It was really cool to also see like where a lot of that frustration comes within myself is this feeling of, I don't deserve to feel this way. I didn't do anything wrong. Why do I have to feel bad? You know? Tennessee says, I go through a cycle of disassociating to detach, binge watching YouTube. Then I realize how detached I am and seek out stimulation, usually sugary, salty foods, so that I can feel something positive. Yeah. It's like, the thing is, I understand that because I go through a lot of like, I'm a person that spaces out a lot. Today I was in my meditation, and it's weird because I space out in meditation too, and sometimes it's hard to tell when I'm meditating or when I'm just spacing out. And I guess kind of the key I found is becoming present in that meditation and really taking myself fully into the now, which is really hard to do, Jesus, and it usually lasts 1 second, and then I forget, and then I have to bring myself back, and it's this constant like, it's like, it's literally like, this is being present, and then I kind of do this, and I'm like, oh, present. Oh, present. And like that, this is the practice. It's like, and it takes a lot of work because when you go here, you're almost going like unconscious. You're just like, oh, I'm here. I'm now. And you don't even realize when this is happening until at a certain point you're like, oh shit, I'm not present. Anyways, we'll get into that more. The next thing that you feel when you tend to use avoidance as a coping strategy is lethargy or laziness. And I find that this is often because when we avoid, it does take energy to do so. Feeling a certain emotion, like feeling sadness, takes energy and takes conscious effort to be able to feel that emotion without getting I don't know what that was, without getting wrapped up in the story of that emotion. But the thing is, every time I turn on a YouTube video, I choose to focus on that video so that I don't have to focus on whatever thought or feeling is trying to nag me in the background. So instead of directing my energy in the most optimal way, which would be towards that part of myself that's like, hey, pay attention to me. Hey, I'm a feeling or a thought that like needs your presence. I direct it somewhere else. I am putting my energy here. And by the time I end watching that video, I don't feel like I have energy to do the things I want to do or need to do, because this is asking for my energy in the background. And instead of addressing it so that I feel free to address the other things in my life, I am trying to avoid it by doing something else, and I am almost putting it on hold. I am spending more energy by trying to avoid it. Does that make sense? Which is why you can be... Oh, my video is lagging. I hope that the stream is still going pretty well. But, fuck, what was I saying? That's why we can watch YouTube or Netflix all day, and when we get off of it, we feel so fucking drained. And we're like, why am I drained? I didn't do anything. I didn't even think. I didn't do shit. I was just sitting here watching a screen. Why do I feel so exhausted? Well, maybe it's because you weren't using that time to recharge, or like to almost take a step back from your life for a minute. You were using it to avoid something. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean if you do watch TV for multiple hours that you're always using it to avoid something. But then also, when an episode ends, you feel like you have the conscious choice to say, all right, I'm ready to take a break. Or like you don't feel like you need to watch the next episode right now. Do you know what I'm saying? If you feel this urge to go back to something right now, it's almost like... And it's not bad if you do that, by the way. Because, I mean, I fucking do that. Like, last night I was watching... I don't even watch TV much, but I was watching Only Murders in the Building. And I did feel that need to, like, watch another episode, even though I wasn't really feeling very good by the end of it. Hold on, there is a reason I said that. If you're not using TV or media or food or something to avoid feeling something else or dealing with something else, the reason there won't be this urge, like almost like this magnetic pull, like you need to do something again, is because you're able to bring yourself to the present moment and recognize that I have any choice I want to make. You're not avoiding anything, so therefore you're not going to feel this need to go to something specific. Because if you know, for example, watching this video is going to prevent me from feeling these emotions that I don't want to feel, then when that video's over, you're going to be desperate to find another video so these emotions don't come back to the forefront of your mind. But if these are there and you're not avoiding it, then that video ends, these emotions come up, and you're like, okay, I'm actually going to address you right now because you're here. I'm present with myself. I'm not avoiding this. Avoidance is the opposite of presence. The reason it's so important to be present is because, I mean, I don't even know. Everyone says this, and it doesn't really make sense until you really experience it. But the present moment is the only thing that exists and ever will exist. It's not like the past didn't happen, and it's not like the future isn't going to happen. It's not like those things don't exist. But right now, the only thing that exists is right now. So why are you concerning yourself with what happened yesterday? That doesn't have to do with right now. Maybe someone will come to you and they'll talk about what happened yesterday, and then that yesterday is a part of your now. because the energy of yesterday is there. But if you're always getting lost in what happened and creating stories around it, then you're never going to be living now, because you're always living in a story and you're always going to be floating above your life. You're always going to be living your life through this filter instead of just living it. You're always going to be trying to avoid the things that make you uncomfortable and creating reasons as to why your life feels a certain way or goes a certain way, or blaming other people or other things or blaming yourself instead of just living it. The last thing that you feel when you avoid your feelings, or avoid shit in your life, the one that I think is the most prominent is numbness. And this is actually the video that I want to make, that I'm going to film and upload, and it won't be alive, and I'm very excited to do it. I'm really excited. I'm only really excited because I had a huge breakthrough about numbness recently. Like a huge breakthrough. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to go over it really briefly. But numbness is essentially what you feel when all the other strategies start to fail. Numbness happens when you avoid so much that your body learns, I literally can't feel this, so I'm going to create this energetic wall where even if you want to feel what's on the other side of the wall, you can't. Because there's this huge force field around it of numbness, and then you wonder, you almost feel like this negative nothingness. The thing I think we forget about numbness is still a feeling. Just the way anxiety is a feeling or frustration is a feeling. The difference is it's so slow that we forget. So we'll get so caught up in trying to break down the wall of numbness that we don't ever take the time to actually sit with it, to sit with the feeling of numbness. We try to feel beneath it. But then by trying to feel beneath it, you're resisting numbness, and whatever you resist persists. If you feel numb right now, for example, if I sit here and I'm like, okay, what's beneath this? I'm thinking about how to not feel numb instead of just letting myself feel numb. When your foot falls asleep, it doesn't feel like nothing. It feels like tingly and pins and needles. You know what I mean? Numbness doesn't feel like nothingness. I mean, it does, but it's not. It's not just nothingness, because even nothing is something. There's something beneath that nothingness. So therefore, if you sit with it, you're going to feel it, and when you feel it, you transmute it. When you feel the numbness, it dissolves, and then all that's left is the emotion that's beneath it. I remember this is the same meditation I did where I saw the past life, which I'll talk about in the next video because I want to really talk about numbness in depth. I was doing a meditation, I was having my day, and I was avoiding shit all day, feeling super numb, and I was playing this video game, and there's a really, really emotional part in it, and I wanted to use this part to grab my emotions and make them really strong. But here I am in this scene trying to make myself cry, and I just can't cry. And it sucked because I wanted to cry so bad, but there was this wall of numbness around my emotions. So what I did is I decided to sit outside without my phone. All I brought was my water bottle. Speaking of which, I'm thirsty. That was great. I love water. Water is the best. Anyways, so I sit outside and I'm trying to get beneath this numbness, and the thought comes to me, why are you trying to break down this wall? Why don't you just feel it? Just feel the numbness. And I literally imagined numbness as a wall, and I imagined myself literally sitting in it. I am in the wall. There's a wall, and I'm inside, I'm inside the wall. And I just imagine myself sitting there, and it kind of turned from this like to like a more peaceful feeling of like feeling it dissolve and feeling like life was more real, like I was more present. And then like that's when I tapped into like the past life. And that's when I felt like this huge sense of it's not fair I feel this way. Why do I have to feel this way? What did I do to deserve this? And you know, that's like I was tapping into this story that I was telling myself that I wasn't even consciously aware that I was telling myself. And that was really beautiful. Oh, Shadow wants to come say hi. Say hello. Hi. Hello. Da 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 da. She's great. Your stream is still going. That's good to know. Now I'm eager to see that video. I'm eager to record it. As I said, I was gonna record it today. Didn't happen yet. Doesn't it mean that I can't feel anxious just out of the blue with like a clear head when I feel like I gotta be something else outside, triggered something else, but I cope with it with anxiety? I don't know exactly what you're asking, to be honest. Do you mean like anxiety can't just come out of the blue? Well, it can. Of course it can, but that doesn't mean it doesn't come up for a reason. Maybe the reason isn't just external. Like, for example, the way I think of it is when you're triggered by something, it's like there's an aspect of yourself that's locked in time, frozen in time from like a traumatic event, and then there's something that comes up that resonates at the same energy of that traumatic event. And so your past self that is stuck in time in your body is then flaring up and being unstuck in time from this trigger. And then you get to feel this, and it almost seems like, oh, I'm sad out of nowhere. I'm angry out of nowhere. I'm anxious out of nowhere. But that doesn't mean that anxiety isn't coming up for a reason, because anxiety isn't just like it is a natural state of being, but it's also not from another perspective. It depends on how you look at it. It's a natural state of being in terms of like, you know, it's something we've developed naturally, but it's not natural in the sense of like, I don't know, does a lion sit there and worry about like, I don't know, if they're gonna have enough cubs by the time they die? Like, I mean, that might be a bad example, but my point is like, anxiety is a coping strategy. It's an emotional coping strategy. So yeah, it can come out of nowhere, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a message for you. Anxiety it feels like such a curse, and it feels so shitty, and it like hurts. I know, believe me, anxiety sucks. But it also can be such a gift, because anxiety comes from sensitivity. Your sensitivity is a superpower. Your sensitivity means that you have this ability to perceive and feel these aspects of reality that other people may not have the capacity to tap into. And the reason it's coming to you in the form of anxiety is because you have not learned in your life, you've not been given the tools of how to deal with all of this information in a way that is peaceful. So you've learned how to deal with it in a way that may be more analytic and like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that, da, 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 da. And you're getting caught up in the anxiety instead of feeling the anxiety and seeing what this overwhelm of emotion has to offer you. Anxiety is information, but it's not about the thoughts. It's about the feeling. But when you feel the feeling, you change the energy of the anxiety, and that's when you reach a state where you're able to attract the thought that tells you what the anxiety means. The meaning behind the anxiety isn't in the vibration of anxiety. Does that make sense? You have to almost like feel it, and when you feel it, you transmute it. And that's when the message comes. you have to be present with the anxiety. When you're in the anxiety, you're not present. You are probably like, you're not present. That's all I can really say. You know, when I'm sitting here worrying about, oh, I need to make a YouTube video today. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do all these things in order to be successful. I'm not present. I'm worrying about my future. I'm thinking about how things have gone wrong in my past, both consciously and unconsciously. In that moment, I am in the anxiety. Anxiety is like a cloud, and I am in the eye of the storm. Or I can also be in that eye of the storm, but instead of getting wrapped up in like the tornado, I don't know if that's how it works, but anyways, instead of getting wrapped up in the tornado, I'm like standing in the middle of it, feeling the wind, observing the wind, and letting it settle, instead of almost like feeding the fire by getting caught up in it. It's hard to explain, and it's not even something I fully know how to explain with words, but that's the best way I know how to describe it. The reason we avoid is because we don't know how to feel things. So we've learned that since I don't know how to properly feel my emotions, I'm going to do everything in my power to just not feel it at all. Because our society has not been given the tools. Like in school, we are not given any tools on how to deal with our emotions. We're not. I mean, in school, we learn so many things that are, in my mind, not very important, and so many things that we should be learning that we don't even talk about. You know? I don't know, that's my opinion. Hi, Shadow. Shadow's the best. I'm live right now. Thank you. That was my sister, I think. Coming in hot with the realness. Thank you, J. Lindsay Ray. That's a cool name. I hope I pronounced that right. I mean, I feel like that'd be hard to pronounce wrong, but who knows? Ah, hi, Shadow. Many pats to her. Yes, sir. I'm gonna go grab a snack. Catch up in a bit. Sounds good. I know because of this live, because I'm feeling a sensation in my third eye right now. Hey, that's awesome. Instead of trying to push through your emotions, take a moment to stop, breathe them in, and accept that it's happening. Is that about right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way we deal it always like shifts and changes. But yes, that's definitely the right idea, is like, there's two ways to feel things. Let's use frustration as an example because we just talked about anxiety. I can feel my anger or frustration in a sense where I'm so angry and I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. You're a bitch. You suck. I hate you. And I just get mad at you and I blame you and I'm like, Rrr. In that, I'm not really feeling my anger. I'm getting wrapped up in my anger and I'm like a dragon and I'm breathing my fire on you. Rah! I want to breathe my fire. Yeah. Instead of, and I mean, the thing is, as someone who's been like a person who's blamed themselves, when you blame yourself, you are doing the exact same thing from an energetic perspective as someone who blames everything on you. Blaming everything on yourself is the same as blaming everything on someone else. It's the same thing, energetically speaking. So, again, I can also breathe the fire on myself or the idea of myself. Or I can feel the urge to spew that fire, and instead of just reactively getting mad at someone or getting mad at myself, I can feel that. I can hear those thoughts. That doesn't mean the urge won't still come up. It doesn't mean those thoughts won't still come up. But are you going to just believe those thoughts and let those thoughts like, oh, I hate myself. Then I feel more ashamed of myself at the same time. And then that shame also makes me angrier because I feel like I don't deserve to feel ashamed of myself. And then it's like a snake eating its own tail. Or I can recognize that I'm doing that to myself and simply just see it without judgment. And then it's like, this may not be the best example, but imagine you have a friend who always picks on you. If you reactively get really mad at them picking on you, they're going to continue picking on you because they're getting a reaction. They're feeding off of your reaction. Like, energetically speaking, they're getting something out of the fact that you're reacting. If you stop reacting to them, literally just don't interact when they do that thing that bothers you, and you just feel those emotions, you're going to start to see their frustration because they're getting angry that they're not getting the energy out of you that they were before. They're going to be the one that gets frustrated because what? Now they're just purposefully annoying you? Like, if you have a big reaction to that person annoying you, great. You get to look like the idiot. You get to look like the bad guy. But if they're just annoying you and you're just present with yourself and don't really react or engage, then it's going to be clear that they're the one that's like, Does that make sense? The emotion is going to get even more intense when you stop reacting to it, but it's because you're actually transmuting it. For example, I've used this example 1,000 times. If I have an addiction to smoking cigarettes and I quit, my urges to smoke a cigarette are going to get even stronger. Sorry that plane is incredibly loud. That urge to smoke a cigarette is going to get even stronger the moment you quit. The thing is, in a month, it'll be less strong. Another month, less strong, less strong, less strong, until basically that urge completely goes away. Oh my God. Planes, man. What the heck? I don't even know if you can hear it, but to me it was like, it was so, wow, great. Anyways, yes. I just got frustrated at that plane. That's funny. Yeah. I forget exactly what I was talking about, but I'm going to read your comments now. Yes. It's a long time to find where anxiety comes from. Absolutely. Anxiety is a tough cookie, but also I'm very grateful for my anxiety. I don't always feel grateful for it. I'm going to be honest with you. There's moments where I feel very frustrated that I get very anxious. But at the same time, it really, from the right perspective, anxiety can be such a blessing. How interesting. Yes, Omar, how interesting. It's like you sort of connect with it and then you can see it differently. Like you're part of it and then you can see outside of it the same way we see outside of ourselves. It's interesting. I mean, I guess, yeah. It's like, if I'm reading a book and I'm reading what's happening right now and I'm present with what's happening right now in the story, I'm going to pick up on almost every detail of what's happening. If I'm reading and as I'm reading, I'm thinking about, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what this character is going to do. I wonder what that character is going to do. I wonder what's going to happen here and here and here. I'm not being present, and therefore, later in the book, I may realize, wait a minute, what is this character talking about? It's because when I wasn't present when I was reading, so I missed a lot of elements of the story. And so by the time I get to the end, it may not even be as satisfying because I wasn't present with my journey. And it's not bad to think about, oh my God, what's going to happen at the end of the book? But if you're, in a sense, not being present with what's going on, you may miss out on just how deep and rich the story really is because your focus is not present. Does that make sense? And it's the same thing with life. I can get caught up in is this person still going to be friends with me? Does this person even like me? Are they going to want to hang out tomorrow? Oh my God, like, what if I relapse and do that thing that I'm addicted to that I'm trying to quit? You're getting caught up in the story. What do you think it means if you do that thing that you're quitting? Do you think it makes you a bad person? Do you think it means like bad things are going to happen to you? Do you think it means like you're not as evolved as you think you are or want to be? What story are you telling yourself? That story is probably still going to pop up even if you choose like not to listen to it, but the less you focus on it, the less it's going to pop up. And then you start to realize you're the one who gets to assign meaning to everything. And on top of that, you should be aware of the fact that it's you assigning the meaning. So if the meaning that helps you now isn't helping you out in 5 years, you get to change the meaning again. For example, at one point in my life, I can see, I don't know what my next step in evolution is going to feel like, because one thing I've realized is the more you evolve, the more you realize that you have no idea what the next stage of your evolution is going to be or feel like. Does that make sense? Like, at the beginning of my spiritual awakening, I could think, oh, being more evolved means you're never going to feel negative emotions. But then in 15 years, I'm still feeling those negative emotions, but now I know how to navigate them and transmute them instantly. And that feeling those negative emotions doesn't mean anything about me. But 10 years ago, I wouldn't have guessed that that's what the next stage in evolution would look like. So the reason I'm saying that is because we create stories. Those stories can trigger even more emotions. So if the story I tell myself now, which is like, anxiety is the biggest blessing to me and I welcome it with open arms, maybe in 5 years, I'm not going to see it the same way. I'm going to say, and obviously this is a complete guess because I have no idea what I'm going to feel like or think in 5 years, but maybe instead it's like, oh, anxiety is coming up. This is the energy of my past self. At this point, I'm just going to say, I love you. Thank you for being here. And I don't consent to worrying about my future. And then I let it go. And I'm not even saying that that's what I should do or that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm just saying like the meaning I assign to things now, the way I deal with things now may not be the right way to deal with things forever. So if you get too caught up in what meaning you're assigning to everything, then you're not going to evolve. If you're getting attached to the way that you do things right now, you're never going to evolve from where you are right now. Does that make sense? How are you going to like become your highest potential if you're always limiting yourself in the story or the meaning you're assigning to things right now? If I get caught up in the identity that I developed as a child, which is I'm nice, I'm selfless, I'm generous, I'm a good person, I would never grow beyond that archetype. I would never consider other possibilities, and I would have so many less opportunities in my life if I continued to adhere to that structure. But if I also create a new structure and believe that this new identity that I created is my ideal self, then I'm never, ever going to be able to evolve from where I am right now. Does that make sense? And that keeps going, you know? I don't know. I think sometimes we think we're evolving to one point, not realizing like the way we're evolving can be setting us up for future limitation, if that makes sense. I don't know how we got on this topic because this whole topic was about avoidance and somehow I started talking about who the fuck knows what, but you know, we're going with the flow. This saw an orb. Yes, it totally makes sense. Hell yeah, I'm very glad. Giving gratitude to anxiety, I've never thought of that before. Yeah. But believe me, it's like, it's nice. It's nice. It's weird for sure, because it's definitely not something I would have thought about either. But recently, I have been a lot more grateful for my anxiety, which has been really good. Really good. A word I cannot read. Alexithymia. It's a personality trait characterized by subclinical inability to identify and describe emotions experienced by oneself. Interesting. Just in case Dani asks what that is. Thank you so much, Sage. Wait. Did someone ask about that earlier? How about alexithymia? There it is. If I'm spelling that right, where people can't always get home, they feel. Stop. I was thinking about this today in my meditation, actually, which is one of the tools that therapists use is like the emotion wheel, where you classify exactly what you're feeling. And I think it's good because it makes it easy for us to communicate what we're experiencing. But in terms of feeling an emotion, do you need to know exactly what it is to feel it? You can be present with the emotion. You don't need... Thinking about why we're feeling an emotion, or even what that emotion exactly is, or what caused it to come up, or what childhood trauma that this emotion is connected to, these are all thoughts that can actually be ways to avoid feeling the emotion itself. It's not that these thoughts are bad, or these questions are bad, or we shouldn't be asking these questions, because these questions are important. But are we asking these questions in order to get more in touch with the feeling? Or are we unconsciously asking these questions so that we feel like we're doing the work or feeling the feeling, but we're using it so we don't actually have to sit there and feel it? Like, it's weird to say, but it's like, as I said with the numbness, when I was trying so hard to not feel numb, I was subsequently making myself feel number. When I decided to feel the numbness itself and to sit with it completely, that is when the numbness dissolved. When I stopped having resistance towards not feeling it and instead began feeling it. If you're trying to identify an emotion, you're just putting yourself further away from that emotion by trying to be like, what are you? What are you? I need to understand you. Does that make sense? What if you just feel? I hope that helps. All right. Last few notes before we end today's live, which is feeling feelings is how we transmute them. When we feel feelings without judgment, and there can still be the presence of judgment or still the presence of a story, but we don't attach to the judgment. We don't attach to the story. We let those thoughts ride over and we don't engage in that vibration. We recognize that they're there. When you feel those feelings without attachment to the story, that is when we transmute it. If, for example, I judge someone for their political views, I can either just feel that judgment in my body. Maybe the thoughts still come up about judging them, but I am self-aware that those thoughts and this judgment actually doesn't have to do with them, but has to do with me and has to do with the vibration I'm holding on to. Or I can feel that judgment and attach to that story and still be judging them and say, well, I should be feeling this way. I'm just feeling my feelings. Am I though? Am I really feeling my feelings? Or am I just using the ability to judge this person as a reason for why I should be feeling this way? And the thing is, none of this is bad. None of this comes with judgment. All I'm saying is if you want to upgrade and reach that next level of consciousness, or I guess like presence and power and peace in your life, holding on to judgment is not how you're going to get there, right? But that doesn't mean it's bad to do that, because you already know what your life feels like when you judge. You already know what it means to hold on to all these things, because that's pretty much the basis of what all of us come here as. Because that's the way our society functions, and we kind of adopt the same mindset as our family. I mean, if you're here, you're probably still like experiencing a lot of the things that I'm talking about. So my point is, it's not bad to do these things because you already know what existence is like when you do these things. The thing is, we don't know what existence is like when we change the way we operate. Do you want to experience this new way of existing, or do you want to continue existing how you've been existing? There's no right or wrong. It's completely up to you. And the reason I'm really reiterating that is because a lot of teachers, they don't have judgment towards those things, but I still feel like I'm judging myself, which I recognize is just me. But I think it's nice to really affirm, like, there isn't judgment there. And even in me, I'll be honest, there is some judgment there, but I'm not unconscious of that judgment, and I don't allow it to control me, even though there are some moments where I fall into it. Yes. Anyways, avoiding feelings is the opposite of feeling them and adds on to existing energy. So what I mean is, the example I came up with is, if there's a hungry child, if you avoid feeding that child because you feel bad, or I don't know, you don't feel like you have enough food to give, that child is going to get hungrier. If you are anxious, for example, and try to avoid your anxiety, you're going to become more anxious instead of sitting with the anxiety and uncovering the message as to why you feel anxious. Because what I've realized is, like, I'll feel anxious because I'm not doing enough work. And then I avoid my work so I don't have to feel the anxiety. And then I get even more anxious because I'm not working. And then, like, it's a snake eating its own tail. My anxiety does have something to do with the work. But it's also like I'm not living in alignment. So by trying to avoid the anxiety, I'm living even less out of alignment. Like, I don't have to be a slave to my anxiety and a slave to my fear and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to work nonstop so I don't have to feel this way, because that's kind of the pendulum swing. But if I can sit with that anxiety and transmute it, then I'm going to work when it's in alignment to me, which means I'm not just always going to avoid my work. When you avoid your feelings, you're going to avoid your problems and avoid your responsibilities and avoid conflict in the physical world. When you are present with your internal world, with yourself, you're going to become present with your external world and your life, and you are going to do things when they are in flow. I hope that makes sense. There's a lot of thoughts coming through my head. Okay. As I said before, avoidance is the opposite of presence. Avoidance is, quite frankly, avoiding what's presently coming up, avoiding the present moment, avoiding your responsibilities, avoiding your feelings. Be present with your thoughts and feelings, and be aware of what stories you tell yourself, both positive and negative. Just because you perceive a story as positive doesn't mean it's benefiting you. I mean, in general, I would say more often times it is, but just because a story is positive doesn't, like, for example, if, this may be a really extreme example, I don't even know if I should use it. Okay. Let's say someone is, if someone is starving themselves and the story they create in their head is that that's actually good for them and that people are going to love them more if they do this, and they have a very positively oriented story in their head over this behavior, that story may not actually be a story that's positive for them, because it could actually make it where they start to behave in a way that's really unhealthy, and then they don't live as full or enriching of a life. Does that make sense? It doesn't matter if you perceive a story as positive or negative. Just be aware of the stories you're telling yourself and do your best to come to a neutral standpoint, because both positive and negative energy from your perspective can be a filter that isn't beneficial to your reality as a whole. Anyways, I'm going to read your comments. I think we're basically done for today. I hope you got something out of this live. Yeah. Anxiety is only a blessing if you accept it and feel it. Cold showers can trigger a release because you have to accept the cold. That's an interesting way to think about it. And I mean, I agree, because it's all about the perspective, right? Anxiety absolutely can be a blessing and something you're grateful for. But if you're in the perspective of being a slave to your anxiety and being like a victim of your anxiety and constantly feeling overwhelmed, like, of course you're not going to see anxiety as a blessing. You're going to see anxiety as like the biggest curse of your life and as something that's almost impossible for you to overcome, you know? I think you are more on the ball than all my therapists combined. So on point. Thank you, Zoe. You know, I think sometimes it's about finding the therapist that's right for you. And I think sometimes a lot of people have a lot of training and everyone is great at their own things. And I'm not at all like sitting here like, I'm like better than a therapist. Like, I don't think that really. But I do think that some therapists aren't really meant to be therapists in the way that they're practicing, or maybe their patients aren't in alignment to them. And I think some people look at it from a very analytical perspective. And from my personal opinion, I think it's important to look at it from a more heart-based emotional perspective, because personally I've found that the analytical perspective just causes me to continue overthinking, which just reinforces the behavior that I've already been in from the start. And that doesn't really help me evolve. That's my personal opinion. I think there are certainly mental health professionals out there that can feel more in alignment to you, you know? I mean, it's hard. I got really lucky with my therapist, so I know that there's really, really awesome therapists out there. What if you just feel so short yet so powerful? Thank you, Sage. Do you meditate every day? Yes and no. The reason I say that is because there are periods where I have not meditated for like 2 weeks, but there are periods where I meditate every day or multiple times a day. It kind of comes in waves, to be honest. I think it's great to meditate every day. I think you should, but I think if you go through periods where you don't feel ashamed about it, because probably the reason you're not meditating is because you're avoiding feeling certain things. And I think at a certain point, like what happened to me is my avoidance made me so uncomfortable that I had to start meditating every day again. And then when I'd miss a day, instead of being like, oh shit, I didn't meditate today, oh, I did something bad, instead, like, I like just meditated when it came naturally to me, which usually was like pretty soon the next day. So do I meditate every day? Usually. But also if I don't meditate, it's not like I feel like I messed up my entire day or my entire week or now my energy is going to be off. It can get off if I'm not meditating because I'm avoiding it. But sometimes I don't meditate because it just doesn't come to me and I'm just being present in my human, physical, day-to-day life, you know? So, sort of is my answer, usually. I hope that helps, bruh. Yes, it helps. I literally don't think I've ever heard you say anything that hasn't helped in all your videos I've watched. Oh, thank you. Oh, wow. Irething 93. Irething I don't even know how to read that. That is the most intense name ever. Thank you for creating that name and giving me the challenge of reading it today. I love you. Tanner Wolf says, essentially allow your emotions to follow through you. Acknowledge them, don't ignore them. It makes sense. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for watching today. I am really excited to come out with my other video on numbness. I don't know. I just love the vibe of these lives. Like, when I record a YouTube video now, I feel so, like, stiff. I come here and I just feel like, hello, friends, what's good? I'm Dani, and I'm just gonna be doing my thing. And then sometimes when I don't know, the energy is very different, and I've been really vibing with the energy of going live and like talking to people and knowing like, wow, there's people listening to me right now, and I feel like I get to interact with you, you know? Like, I don't know any of you. I don't know what any of you look like or sound like or what your identity has been or what you've gone through, but I feel like I'm talking to you. Like, I feel like I'm talking to someone right now, and sometimes in my other videos, it feels more like I'm talking to, I don't know. It feels more like a performance, if that makes sense. I don't know, this feels more personal. Dani for president. Oh, it's a funny thought. It's definitely a funny thought. At one point, I was getting really into, like, politics, but more into the fact that, like, politics is bullshit, and I think we should just completely change it. Because politics is important, but the way politics is framed in mainstream media today is, like, a distraction, you know? But, like, you know, the decisions we make as a collective are very important, which politics is supposed to represent, but doesn't, I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting caught up in the wrong thing. But I would talk about politics a lot, and I remember my dad was like, you should be a politician, and I was like, the thing is, I actually know that that's a timeline, but I don't want to go there, because I know that that timeline is not my highest timeline. At least right now, or anytime soon. I think about going into that realm and realizing, like, I feel like I've just become so physically based in that world. And I feel like that's kind of the opposite of what I'm doing. Like, I'm really, right now, working myself from the inside out. Like, I'm doing the internal stuff and then bringing it through to the other layers. That's what I feel like I'm doing right now, which is really cool. I feel like so many changes, and I feel like I'm evolving so much. And then I have moments where I'm like, I haven't changed at all. I'm the same. Nothing ever changes. And then later I realize, oh wait, no, that's just me experiencing a part of myself that's frozen in time. And then I come back. And then, you know, it continues happening as I'm learning and evolving. Anyways, we sound like Earthlings. Hell yeah. We're totally here, and we're totally listening. This is super comforting. I'm really glad, Zoe. It's good company. Not many people that admit to having the same experience. Awesome. All right. Anyways, before I get stuck on this live forever, spiritual president. Okay. Before I get caught on this live forever, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and